Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up, Lineage? What it do? What it do? What it do? What it do? Man, listen, just felt the need to come and, drop a little something for y'all. So let's get into this. Gonna give some people some time to, chime in. I know it's a little late, but we're gonna drop some knowledge and some information on the peoples, right? Because sharing is caring, and that's what it's all about, sharing information, right? Like I always start videos, man, just want to give thanks to the Great Spirit, Mother God, for energy, life, you know what I mean, that intelligence, and just the ability to just use my own mind and think, give thanks to my ancestors, my spiritual parents, and let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. All right, do me a favor, guys. um, Go ahead and start sharing the video, all right? Do some shares, man. Let's get this popping. Let's get this popping. All right. So in this build, I'm going to talk to you guys about, I'm going to go a little bit over UNDRIP. I'm going to go a little bit into the American Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. I'm going to go into a little bit of what you call House Resolution 331. And also I'm going to tie in some of their codes, all right, that will kind of bind everything together. Okay. So all the information is in the link below. Well, not below, but right here. Okay. Well, actually that way. No, actually that way. Right. Because it's on my right side, and most likely it might be on your left. But the information to the links are there. And hey, you could reference it yourself. Like I always tell people, it's one thing to hear the information, but it's another thing to be able to go ahead and seek it yourself and read it, research the information, insert the information, and let it make sense to you. Because the goal right now is to really be able to look up information that you could get yourself out of situations. Now, by no means I'm promoting people being lawless. No, I'm not for that, okay? Just because we're indigenous, we are aboriginals, it doesn't give you the right to go around being in dishonor. And that's where a lot of our people fall short. You feel me? Stay in honor. That's what it's all about. Okay? So I'm going to read a little bit about, not about, but I'm going to read a little bit of the first link I have. Let me see. The first link I have is on DRIP. So I'm going to read a little bit of that. I'm not going to read everything. All right. I'm just going to read a few of the articles just to kind of like open up your mind a little bit. For those of you who haven't heard of UNDRIP, UNDRIP is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. So we're going to read a few articles. We are dealing with indigenous people. We are indigenous. All right. So once again, I'm making an attempt to share some of the rights that we have as indigenous people and how to bind the United States and all these other independent states, all right, to that. It's a declaration or a resolution, so to speak. So it's not legally binding, but I'm going to show you how to bind it together and make it legally binding. All right. So let's get into this. Hope that makes sense. So I'm going to start off with on drip. All right. If you can, I have everything in the link below. If you feel like reading along with me, please do. And let's do this. Okay. So we have United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. I'm gonna go straight into the articles, just so you know a little history on that. This is a declaration that indigenous people around the world, not just the Americas, but indigenous peoples around the world came together, and they figured that indigenous people, our rights were being violated too much. Okay, so they wanted to put something together where indigenous people's rights can be acknowledged. The thing about it is, it's been literally, this is something that they've been pushing for, I'm talking about years. The United States adopted it in 2007, all right? But I think it came into, I wouldn't say law because it's not law, but it became recognized, so to speak, I think in 2008. But Obama adopted that in 2007. It's not being promoted because, of course, if we know that we're indigenous and we're able to use those things, then it wouldn't be to their advantage. But if you're going to claim that you're indigenous, and you are, then you have to know some of the rights that you have. So let us get into this, okay? Even before the United States adopted it, United States was one of the countries, okay, or one of the organizations rather, that was against adopting on drip. So they were one of the last few to actually adapt it, all right? A little history on that. Let us go straight into the articles. I'm going to go into Article 1. Once again, I have that in the description so you could follow along or do your independent reading, okay? So I'm just going to open up your mind and introduce you to it for those of you who don't know about it. And for those of you who do, then maybe that could be like a refresher to let you know that we have these things to our advantage. All right, hope that's fine. So we have Article 1. Indigenous peoples have the right to the full enjoyment as a collective or as individuals. Let's stop right here. Article 1 is telling you that we have the rights, okay, and full enjoyment, all right, as a collective, meaning that whether it's a group of people, that's a collective, whether you call yourself a clan, whether you call yourself a nation, a group of people coming together, you call it what you want, we still have those rights, a right to full enjoyment, and or as individuals. So you don't necessarily have to be part of a collective of a group so that you could enjoy your rights as an indigenous man or woman. So whether you're an individual or you are a collective, we have the rights to exercise our full rights as indigenous people. Let us proceed. Of all human rights and fundamental freedoms as recognized in the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, and international human rights law. So those are some of the declarations that you want to check up as well. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and international human rights law. What I would suggest is, because I have copies of all those things, so what I would suggest is you look it up, get the PDF, and make copies, and you get familiar with it. All right, get familiar with the articles. You feel me? So that's article number 1. Article number 2. Indigenous peoples and individuals are free and equal to other people and individuals and have the right to be free from any kind of discrimination. Now, it doesn't say indigenous people have a right to be enslaved. No, it says indigenous peoples and individuals are free and equal. All right. So therefore, no one should be in a position where they feel that they're actually more superior than we are. Okay. As a matter of fact, it's our land. So it shouldn't be equal anyway. We have the highest authority on our land. We're supposed to. But once again, the majority of the people are not stepping up. The majority of the people are lost. All right. But we are the highest authority on our land. But by any means, at least for the least, we should be equals for the least. Okay. Now it says indigenous peoples and individuals are free and equal to all other peoples and individuals and have the right to be free from any kind of discrimination. It didn't say some discrimination. It didn't say a little discrimination. It says from any kind of discrimination in the exercise of their rights, in particular that is based on the indigenous origin or identity. Our indigenous origin or identity. So once we put ourselves in a position to do our own due diligence in terms of our research, and we know who we are, we know we are indigenous, then we have every single right to exercise that right. You feel me? Based on our indigenous origin and identity. What is your origin? You tell me. What is your identity? You tell me. Only you could answer those questions. Now, I could only tell you about me. I could only tell you about me, right? My indigenous origin is I was, born in the Americas, right? I'm an American Aboriginal. Now, what do I identify as? That's also an identity, but to get more specific, I am Carib and Anianwea. Now, I could either pick one or the other, all right, on paper, all right, or on my ID, I'm just picking one, Anianwea, right? But I have both very strong DNA of Carib and Anionwea. Okay? Article 3. Article 3. Indigenous peoples have the right to self-determination. I don't know if you know what self-determination means, but self-determination, I'm going to paraphrase, means that we have the right to determine, okay, our statuses, our social, political, economical status. We have that right to self-determination. By virtue of the right, they are freely determine their political status. All right, what is your political status? Many people out there, their political status is Black and African American, right? That is a political status. The only problem is it means that you are dead in law. You don't exist. You have no rights. You're only allocated privileges that can be taken away, and therefore you have no rights. Ward of states, so to speak. All right. Now it says, let me see, 3, yeah. Indigenous people have the right to self-determination. By virtue of the right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. So therefore, we as Indigenous people, we have every right to open businesses and call it Indigenous businesses. That put us in a whole nother bracket. Because how can you tell me, well, you came and met me on my land. My ancestors, they had a way of sustaining themselves. You took that away from us, and you're telling me in 2019 moving forward, I cannot find ways to build myself and my people or my family economically. That's a violation. Okay? That in itself is a violation. So we have every right to pursue our economic development. Okay? Number 4, Indigenous peoples, in exercising their right to self-determination, have the right to autonomy or self-government in matters relating to their internal and local affairs, as well as ways and means for financing their autonomous functions. Let me break that down. Article 4, Indigenous people, we, okay, in exercising our rights of self-determination. In other words, we determine who we are. We have the right to autonomy or self-government. Autonomy basically means self-sustainable, self-sustained. You provide everything for your own self. And also self-government. Now let me ask you a question. Why is that other ethnic groups get to self-govern? The Jews do it. The Amish does it, right? The Mormons, they do it. The Arabs, the Chinese, right? They have Chinatown. The point I'm trying to make is every other ethnic group get to exercise some form of self-governance. But however, when it comes to we the Aboriginals, we are prevented from doing those things. So once again, you have to start thinking for yourself, why is that? Why we are the only ones who are being deterred from doing those things that other ethnic groups are able to do? Because you see, once they allow us, right, to exercise those rights, they know that automatically we have the highest claim on the land and we are the highest authority. So brothers and sisters, once again, I want you to be able to think, open up your mind, right, and realize why these things are being done to us. It is not being done to you because you are Black. Okay, because your skin is so-called Black. No, because obviously we are not Black. I'm not Black. It is because of a status that you give yourself, and that status means that you are dead in law. But the moment you identify as who we truly are, as the Indigenous people of this land, okay, then our status changes from slave to owners, all right? From privileges to rights. You feel me? From being dealt from a perspective of a legal system that deals with codes, statutes, policies, and ordinances to now being dealt with law. Okay? And not municipal law. Okay? Not de facto law. We are talking about organic law. Okay? The law of the land. All right? And also, our internal, so we have the right to create our own governments, right? To deal with our internal and local affairs, as well as ways and means for financing their autonomous function. In other words, we have all the right to set up our own governments to deal with our internal affairs. So therefore, we don't need their courts to deal with our situation when we are indigenous. So if you're in a situation as a man or a woman, vice versa, it don't matter, and you with your children mother, or you are with your your children's father, and you guys cannot get along, you don't have to take it to their courts. All right, we could create our own and deal with our situation internally, because this system doesn't have our best interests at heart, and we have to realize that. Taking all our fears and going to deal with other people who is bent on destroying us, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think they're going to help your situation? A lot of sisters may think that these people are helping them. No, they are destroying you and damaging you. Okay? So I'm just pointing that out. I'm not saying that a man or a woman shouldn't take the responsibility of taking care of their children. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is we have to learn to deal with that ourselves. We have to create our own communities. We have to come together as a collective and form our own government. We have a right to be autonomous in our land. That is our natural creator-given rights. All right, this is our birthright. Number 5, indigenous people have the right to maintain and strengthen their distinct political, legal, economic, and social and cultural institutions, while retaining their right to participate fully, if they so choose, in the political, economic, social, and cultural life of the state. And I think that's fair, right? They're saying that we have every single right to strengthen, to maintain, and strengthen our distinct political, because when they came, we already had a system, okay? Our legal, well, I would replace legal with lawful, right? Our economic and social cultural institutions. So therefore, we have to form organizations. And that's one thing that our people are lacking. Organization skills, because we're not organized. We're not coming together. Yes, people organize, but people organize for all the selfish reasons. That is not beneficial to the collective. Brothers and sisters, we have to give up that mindset of self and I. By all means, work on I first. I get it, right? But when you put I and I together, what you get? You get 2 eyes. You get eyes. Now you're able to see better, right? 1 eye, 2 eye. Hey, we get eyes, right? When you put 1 eye together, what happens? It becomes we. And there's always numbers. In numbers, we are stronger. So we have to realize that. We have to get a clear understanding of that. We are not going to win this fight as individuals. So at some point, let us forget our petty differences and come together as a collective and let the world know that we are standing in unity. All right? Now, and here's another part of article number 5. So we have a right to maintain our own, create our own, right? But also, if we so choose to participate in the social, economic, and political and cultural life of the state that you are in, then we have every single right to do that. Because how can you come into my home, create shop, and tell me I cannot participate? No. So we have every right to do that as well, just so you know. So they can't say, oh, well, you're indigenous, you can't do this or you can't get that. Nah. This is my home, partner. All right? Article 6. Every indigenous individual has the right to a nationality. Article 6. I'm going to repeat that. Every indigenous individual has a right to your nationality. My brothers and sisters, what is your nationality? Black is not a nationality. African American is not a nationality, right? Now, nationality could be broad in a sense, but my nationality, like I said, I could either say Carib, which is Kalinago, or I could say Anionwea. So on my identification, Anionwea is my nationality. And then we just created a new term called Anionwean, all right? Just like how you have an American, you have a Canadian, all right? Everything ends with A-N. I'm an Anionwean. So I know y'all gonna hear that for the first time, but we actually created that, all right? So just so you know, you see the flag back here, right? So we are Anion-Wayans. And I know that term is going to get popular. I'm not looking for any pats on the back, but at least give Chief Kalanaga a shout out for that one. All right? That's a gift from me to y'all for all those who are actually Anion-Waya descent. All right? You deserve to have a nationality. And don't let anybody or any institution tell you that you cannot have a nationality. All right? And don't let nobody force anything else on you either. If your mother said you was Blackfeet, that's your nationality. If your mother said you was Anion-Waya, that's what you are. If your mother said you were Chickasaw, that's what you are. If your family told you you was Chata or Choctaw, whatever you want to pronounce it, that's who you are. Lenape, Pamunkey, any one of those tribes out there. Powhatan, any one of those tribes. Lenape, any one of the, not tribes, but clans or nations, that's your nationality. All right? Keep that in mind. Article 7. Indigenous individuals have the right to life, physical and mental integrity, liberty, and security of person. What does that mean? Security of person. That means to me, I have every right to defend myself. I have a right to secure me and mine. All right? So now your codes don't apply to me. So now the Second Amendment, all right, the right to protect myself, bear arms, that applies to the people because I'm not Black or African American. And hence the reason why a lot of our people don't get it. You have every single right to bear arms when you are the people. But when you're Black or African American, no, you don't have that right because you don't exist. All right, y'all need to learn this, okay? 2, and that's Article 7, 2, all right? Indigenous people have the collective right to live in freedom, peace, and security as distinct people, and shall not be subjected to any act of genocide or any other act of violence, including forcibly removing children of the group to another home. So by ACS and CPS, whatever they want to call themselves, want to come into your home and take your children, it is because your children are wards of the state. And you have not rebutted their assumption and let them know that you are indigenous and hold them liable for any damages that comes to your property because your children are your property. You feel me? Know your rights. But first, to have rights, you have to be in your proper standing. You have to be in your proper status. Okay? Just so y'all know. And it says what? I'm going to read that again. Indigenous people have the collective right to live in freedom. Whenever you force a birth certificate on me and tell me that's me on the birth certificate, guess what? You're trying to take away my freedom from me. That means you're taking away the right that I have to live in freedom. Because now you're making me a ward, a subject. And it says what? Peace and security and as distinct people and shall not be subjected to any act of genocide. So if you're telling me and forcing me that this title or name on the birth certificate is me, then what are you doing? You are forcing and you're subjecting me to an act of genocide. And if that's not making me free, then what is the opposite of freedom? Slavery. You are advocating slavery. Now you see how it's voluntary? Because you volunteer yourself. All right? You got to use your mind. Think. That's what the Most High give it to us for, right? Any form of genocide or any act of violence, including forcibly removing children of the group to another group. When you take my children out of my home and put them in a foster care all over the place, then that's what you're doing. You're violating my indigenous rights. You're violating my human rights. Now, I'm not giving you any type of permission to ill-treat your children because you think you're indigenous and get away with it. I don't advocate that. If you are abusing your children and the community reach out to you and you're not trying to take heed, then the community should come together and be able to work with you and take that child and take care of that child. That's why we have to come together as a collective and still keep them out of our affairs. That's why there should never be any woman going around talking about I'm a single mother. I don't condone that. That don't appeal to me. Okay? That is an invader ideology. That is the concept of the Caucasian woman. All right? That's not part of our culture. You feel me? Because even they themselves don't practice that. They tell you about it, but no, they have families. They all got rings on their fingers and they in love and they have homes with their family. But they want you to be independent and want you to be single. Okay? Once again, you're at one you don't know. All right? Number 8. Number 8, 1. Indigenous peoples and individuals have the right not to be subjected to forced assimilation or destruction of their culture. In other words, if I tell you that I'm an American Aboriginal, right? And I know a lot of you smoke herb. I don't smoke, but that is part of our culture. Hemp has always been here. But here's how they catch you, right? They change the name and they call it a patent word, and you get arrested for smoking a patent word without a license. When the truth of the matter is, the Most High gave it to you for the healing of the nation. Now, I'm not advocating you smoking and abusing that for recreational purposes, because that's not what our ancestors used it for. Okay, it was all ceremonial. Okay, and you're not supposed to be smoking up your system anyway. But how many people that's gonna hear it with the left ear and pass it out on the right? But anyway, do you? I'm just giving you the information, right? Number 2, states shall provide effective mechanisms for the prevention of and redress. Redress is another form of reparation, right? But it's more redress opposed to reparations. We're supposed to be seeking redress, right? Because when you look at the etymology of the word reparations, it deals with repair. What are you repairing? But redress, now we have to get paid, compensation. You feel me? A, any action which has the aim or effect of depriving them of their integrity as distinct peoples or of their cultural values or ethnic identities. So if I'm telling you, giving you my ethnic identity, why you want to force me to be black? Why you want to force me to be African American? Those are violating our rights. They're forcing us to assimilate, right? And the state's supposed to prevent that and actually help us fight against those type of genocide. But once again, are we stepping up to hold the state accountable? Instead of always on the internet fighting and arguing, right? I'm just saying. B, any action which has the aim or effect of disposing them of their lands, territories, or resources. Nobody's supposed to be forcing us off our lands. Period. Any form of forced population transfer which has the aim or effect of violating or undermining any of their rights. Population transfer is the same thing as taking your children. In my home, that's my population. When you're taking that away from me, that's population transfer. All right? That's my definition of that. D, any form of forced assimilation or integration. Forced assimilation is a form, what you call, man, I just spoke of it in the last video. When people move into your neighborhood and they take over gentrification. Gentrification is a form of forced assimilation and integration, because you are forcing yourselves into our communities, raising up the rent sky high, and then you are getting rid of us because we can't afford it. That's violating our rights. Brothers and sisters, I am not just pointing out the problems. I am showing you and giving you solutions. E, any form of propaganda designed to promote or incite racial or ethnic discrimination directed against them. Any type of form of propaganda. So even if you are not actually doing it, but it sounds like it, or you're promoting a propaganda, that is a form of discrimination. I could sue you and get redress for that. Okay? Number 9, indigenous peoples and individuals have the right to belong to an indigenous community or nation. So let me ask you a question. What indigenous community do you belong to? What nation do you belong to? Once again, that's our nation. We got a flag. So when everybody is talking and playing games and debating, fighting each other and arguing with each other, who's from here and who's not from here, oh, we making moves. We got a constitution. We got bylaws. We got a seal. And all stuff is copyright. Okay? It's copyright with the United States copyright. So like I told y'all before, Chief Kalinago don't be playing no games. And that's why I have a lot of haters, because they're not doing what I'm doing. They're not doing what our people are doing. All right? And our nation members are very serious about what we are doing. Okay? They're giving it their all. So just want y'all to know, we making moves for real. All right? And I commend any one of you who are actually doing the same, because I know there were a few of you guys in the chat earlier that said you were, building your nations. And I respect that and I support that. So get your stuff together, all right? And then we could come together, we could treaty up, all right? And now that's what we used to do. I'm just saying, okay? No discrimination of any kind may arise from the exercise of such right. It didn't say some discrimination or a little discrimination. It says no discrimination whatsoever, right? Article number 10. Indigenous people shall not be forcibly removed from their lands or territories. No relocation shall take place without free, prior, and informed consent of the indigenous peoples concerned, and after agreement on just and fair compensation, and where possible, with the option of return. Now, I'm going to use that in a situation. Check this out. Indigenous people shall not be forcibly removed from their lands or territories, right? So if you're going to come to me and put and throw a bogus charge on me, moving me from my territory, that's already violating my rights. And you're going to transfer me and send me to your jail. It says no relocation shall take place without the free, prior, and informed consent. I'm not going to give you any consent to that, to sending me to your jail, because I didn't break any laws, right? And if I agree to go, guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to give me fair and just compensation where possible. And I'm going to let you know, I'm going to give you the terms and conditions of my return. So if you really want to take my body, I'm going to put an affidavit together, let you know, hey, you want to take my body? Let's make a deal, right? First, you have to pay me X and X amount. I need redress before I even get locked up, okay? I need X and X amount for every hour that I'm in your possession, for every hour. And every weekend, I want to be able to come out and see my family. I want a TV, I want a bathroom, I want a workout, I want to have freedom when I'm in your possession. All right? And any harm that's done to me or brought to me, my family is going to get such and such. And as a matter of fact, before you take me and relocate me, wherever you're taking me, I need an advance, because that means I'm not going to be at home or in my territory to take care of my family. I can't work. I want to make sure my family is good. So I need an advance. Give me at least a month worth of redress so my family could be good. And I'm willing to be in your possession for what, 6 months? You want 6 months out of me? All right, fine. You want a year? Take a year. Brothers and sisters, you could negotiate those things. No, I'm not telling you to go to jail for that reason. I'm not telling you that. But what I'm saying is, you see, when you know the knowledge, because they're going to lock you up anyway, you create the terms. Okay? You create the terms because you are in control. You just don't know that. Because they're not putting you in jail. They're not putting your body in jail. They're just holding the body temporarily. All right? That's all they're doing, because they have already accessed their payment through your trust fund. But anyway, that's another video. We don't have to get into that right now. I don't want to make it too complicated, right? But all that is a form of relocating you, taking you from one place to the next, and they're supposed to pay you for that, right? I'm just putting you out to something to think about, right? But anyway, stay out of trouble, because I don't want any one of my brothers or sisters getting locked up because they feel they could try to get paid by being in jail. You know what I'm saying? You could be out here getting paid as well. 11. Indigenous peoples have the right to practice and revitalize their cultural traditions and customs. This includes the right to maintain, protect, and develop the past, present, and future manifestations of their cultures, such as archaeological and historical sites, artifacts, designs, ceremonies, technologies, and visual and performing arts and literature. All right. Number 2, that's 11, Article 11, 2. States shall provide redress through effective mechanisms which may include restitution developed in conjunction with indigenous peoples with respect to their cultural, intellectual, religious, and spiritual property taken without their free, prior, and informed consent or violation of their laws and traditions and customs. All right. So those things have to be, your laws and your traditions and customs have to be in stone. So when you are out there, right, doing your ceremony, all right, with your herb, the natural herbs that the Creator give you. Once again, I don't smoke, but I'm giving you solutions because some of y'all like to smoke. Because that's all y'all, a lot of you do, just do it because you feel you can. And if that's your life, you want to smoke yourself out, fine. But know that there's a possibility you will get arrested for smoking marijuana, a patent word. You are not getting arrested for smoking a plant, okay? You are getting arrested for smoking a patent word without their permission. It's the word is their property, but not the plant. You see how these devils work? They are very conniving. Okay? So that's how you deal with that situation. You feel me? That's how you deal with that situation. And you could sue them for redress because I've already established who I am. I have a right to a nationality. I have a right to tell you what my laws and my traditions and customs are. All right? And that's part of that. And you are violating that. So now I'm going to sue for redress. That's my religious and spiritual property. It's right there in the declaration. I mean, they're not going to spell it out for you, but it's there. Use your mind, right? Well, I'm just saying. Now, I'm going to stop here because I'm not going to read the entire thing. It's like literally 40-something of them. So that's on drip. All right, let me come back. I'm not looking at the chat right now because I'm actually reading. So let me come back to the chat for a second. Make sure you guys are with me. All right. Okay. Let me see here. Let me load the comments. So do me a favor, guys, just go ahead and keep sharing that information, share the information. Now, once again, brothers and sisters, right? A lot of times, these people, they may make an attempt to violate, right? Your right? Regardless of what you say, you have to know how to hold them liable. Hold them liable, all right? All these people, they have oaths, right? And they have bonds. You have to get access to their oath and get access to their bond, all right? Because they have to indemnify. You feel me? Because they cannot, that's to let you know that they're not above the law. You cannot just go around and violate people's right and get away with it thinking that you're above the law. You can't do that. You can't do that. That's unlawful. Now, don't get me wrong. It's legal because it's their system, but it's actually unlawful. And that's why you have to learn the difference between lawful and legal. Okay? Just so you know. The next one I'm going to go over the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Now, we have all that stuff, like I said, in the link. I mean, in the description, so you have that. I'm going to go over the American Declaration. Why aren't we as Indigenous people, right? Why don't we come together and make sure that the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People become lawfully binding? You see, why are we on the internet arguing? I mean, it irks me to see Aboriginals going back and forth arguing with each other, man. Oh, Yamasee was here first. Oh, Anion Weir was here first. Oh, well, the Olmecs was here first. Oh, well, this was here first. Man, listen, all that stuff is wrong. You know who was here first? People. Man and woman was here first. Because the Creator put people all over this world, all over this earth, all over the Americas. The Creator had people. Now, you would have to go and prove to me that everybody in the Americas call themselves Anion Weir, right? You would have to go prove to me that everybody in the Americas call themselves Shatta. You would have to go prove to me that everybody in the Americas call themselves Carib or whatever. That couldn't have been because they spoke different languages, brothers and sisters. So who cares? Let's forget our differences. What do we have in common? You know what we have in common? The American continent. This soil is our mama. That's our motherland. Because we have been here from time immemorial. Y'all don't believe me? I've proven it to you 1,000 times. And I'm going to go over it again. I'm going to go over it again. Okay? So let us read a little bit on the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Now, OAS, okay, created this. I actually had called. You see me, I'm a man of action. And I always got proof of everything I do because I like to record things. Because I'm creating history. I want my children and their children to know what their dad and their granddad did and their great granddad. All right, I'm creating my legacy and I always keep a record of everything, right? I called OAS and I spoke to the director, and even he himself was frustrated. He said, Chief, listen, they gave us they gave us a drip and they're not honoring it. And he was tight, he was livid. But you know what? Because we as a people, we are not stepping up. We are not stepping up to make sure that it becomes lawful. Who do you think make laws? It's people. And then the legislatures are the ones that bring it into into Congress, and then then they execute it, and then it becomes law. But the people who are making these laws, they don't look like us. So why aren't we the ones stepping up and saying we need to make this law, instead of on the internet arguing and fighting every single day? There's work to be done. I cannot do it by myself. I'm just playing my part. So I'm just letting you know some of the things that I do. And I record all my conversations so nobody could say, oh, well, Chief is lying. No, I got proof. I have called TSA, have conversations with TSA. I have spoken to IRS. I don't play. Oh, trust me, they know who Chief Kalinago is because I let them know. All right. So the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples was adopted at the third plenary session, and that was held on June 15th in 2016. All right, so we have our own declaration. So we have on drip, and now we have a drip, right? The General Assembly, well, I'm not going to read the introduction, right? But let us go straight into the articles. I'm going to go straight into the articles just for time's sake, all right? Straight into the articles. And all that stuff is in the description below. So in your own spare time, please do some reading and get familiar with it, right? They have a preamble. They have all that. You could do that in your own spare time. So we're going to start with Article 1, all right? We're going to start with Article 1. Oh, that's right. You believe I'm creating that legacy. Do me a favor, brothers and sisters. Go ahead and share, man. Share the information. Get it out. 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 All right? Get it out. Okay. Article number 1. The American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples applies to Indigenous people of the Americas. Okay. So, and one of the other reasons why I'm doing this, apart from educational purposes, I want y'all to know that the United States is not America. What does it say? Right there in Article 1, it tells you the American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples applies to the Indigenous people of the Americas. So all of the Americas. So I want all of my Caribbean brothers and sisters to know that you are in America. Okay? South America, Central America, and North America, it's all the Americas. So this applies to each and every one of us. So why are we hating each other? Oh, you're from the Caribbean, you got a different accent, people on the mainland hating you. Then you're on the mainland, people in the Caribbean talking, oh, the so-called black people in the Americas, they're lazy. You know what? Because that's what they teach us. That's what they teach people outside of the United States. That so-called black Americans, African Americans are lazy. I know different because I grew up here. You know what I'm saying? I know it's a lie because I've been dealing with my brothers and sisters on the mainland for a long time. But the truth of the matter is the divide and conquer is real. So you have people who are born on the mainland hating people in South America or in Central America, vice versa. Because we are so divided. But right here it tells you in bold, plain bold English, Article number 1, the American Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples apply to the Indigenous people of the Americas. I didn't make it up. Those are not my words. So why do we always seek to see the difference in each other when we should look for the commonality in us. We have the same mother. Okay? Number two, self-identification as indigenous people will be a fundamental criteria for determining whom the declaration applies. I'm going to read that again, because you see, when you read, you have to read with understanding. I tell people, never read to finish. Read to start. Number two, self-identification as indigenous peoples will be a fundamental criteria determining whom this declaration applies. So it only applies to you by or from self-identification as indigenous people. So for this to apply to you, you have to declare that you are indigenous. Okay? They're not just going to assume you're indigenous. No. You have to make the declaration. When the United States was going through what they was going through, before they became the United States, what they had to do? Huh? They did a Declaration of Independence. So if you had to declare your independency, what does that mean? It means that before you were a slave, you belonged to somebody else. All right? So why aren't you declaring your independence? That's what you're supposed to do. You feel me? So like I said, I'm not just telling you the problem. I'm giving you solutions. Now, you may not have all the pieces, but trust me, I'm going to give you enough so you could figure it out. Or at least reach out to somebody and say, hey, you know what? I kind of got most of it, but I just need some help to the finish line. I'm just saying, right? The states shall respect right to such self-identification as indigenous people, individually or collectively, in keeping with the practices and institutions of each indigenous people. I'm going to read the second part of that. The second sentence in 2, it says what? The states shall respect the right to such self-identification as indigenous people. So your state has no right to tell you that you cannot walk around with your ID saying that you're Shatta, or you're a Chickasaw, or you're a Blackfeet, or you're Anionwea. They are violating your rights. Okay? And it says what? Individually or as a collective. That's our collective right here. We are a nation, in keeping with the practices and institutions of each indigenous people. What are they telling you? That each indigenous people, we have different practices right here, clear as day. So obviously, some of us are going to speak different languages. Obviously, some of us, we're going to have different accents. But we're still indigenous peoples. So why are we fighting each other? Okay? Where are we at now? We are going to do Article 2. The states recognize and respect the multicultural and multilingual character of the indigenous peoples who are an integral part of their societies. Article 3. Indigenous people have the right to self-determination. Once again, that's literally coherent with UNDRIP. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. All right? Number 4, nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, people, group, or persons any right to engage in any activity or to perform any act of contrary to the Charter of the Organization of American States and the Charter of the United Nations, or construed as authorizing or encouraging any action which would dismember or impair totally or in part the territorial integrity or political unity of sovereign and independent states. And to me, that's fair enough, right? That's fair enough. If you're going to be indigenous, it doesn't mean you should violate, the state that you live in, or other people or other citizens, right? You shouldn't violate that. The same respect you want them to have for you, you're supposed to have for others as well. So to me, that's fair enough. Section 2, human rights and collective rights. Article 5, full, effective, and observance of human rights. Indigenous peoples and persons have the right to full enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms as recognized in the Charter of the United Nations, the Charter of the Organization of American States, and international human rights law. You have to know those things, all right? It's only when you are Black or African American, those things doesn't apply to you because you are a private citizen and United States citizens. You are a ward of the state. You are property. But once you step outside that box and you identify as Indigenous, as who we are as the Aboriginals, now you are able to bring international claims for the violation of human rights. Okay? Article 6, collective rights. Indigenous peoples have the collective rights that are indispensable for their existence. Indispensable, meaning that it cannot be replaced. All right? Indispensable for their existence, well-being, and integral development as peoples. In this regard, the states recognize and respect the right of Indigenous peoples to their collective action, to their judicial, social, political, and economic systems or institutions, to their own cultures, to profess and practice their spiritual beliefs, to use their full and effective participation of Indigenous peoples, the harmonious coexistence of rights and systems of the different population groups and cultures. Okay, states have every right to respect that, even us having our own judicial system. So why don't we have our own courts? Why don't we have our own what you call it? Give me a second. Let me get my thought together. Why don't we have our own tribunal courts? Why don't we have that? Why don't we have our own ecclesiastic courts? Because that's the highest court of the land. Even higher than municipal courts. All right? Once again, I'm giving you information to open up your minds. Article 7, gender equality. 1, Indigenous women have the right to the recognition, protection, and enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms provided for in international law, free of all forms of discrimination. So anytime our women are being discriminated against, we should come together and slap some international lawsuits, right? Because we have to protect our women. We have to. Number 2, states recognize that violence against Indigenous peoples and persons, particularly women, hinders or nullify the enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms. You know why they spend so much time on saying we have to protect the women? Because they know women birth the nations. So why are we supporting songs that's every day calling our women bitches and hoes? Why are we allowing these artists to degrade our women, but we still support this type of music? Why do our women advocate themselves calling each other bitches and hoes? Why? Man, I'm just saying, man, too many of our people are damaged, and we have to bring them back into the fold and help them heal that mental disease that they got. 3, states shall adopt the necessary measures in conjunction with Indigenous peoples to prevent and eradicate all forms of violence and discrimination, particularly against Indigenous women and children. The states are supposed to come together with us at the table. Okay, in conjunction means together, to work with. All right, with Indigenous peoples, us, to prevent and eradicate. Eradicate means to get rid of, right? To alleviate, right? All forms of violence and discrimination, particularly against women, Indigenous women and children. Article 8, right to belong to Indigenous peoples. Indigenous persons and communities have the right to belong to one or more Indigenous peoples in accordance with the identity, traditions, customs, and systems of belonging to each people. That is because what we did was we always came together as a people. So if I'm Ani and Wea, and then you have a nation that is Shatta, it doesn't mean that I can't belong to your nation as well. We are strengthening and making sure that our ties we are stronger in numbers, brothers and sisters. Okay? No discrimination of any kind may arise from the exercise of such right. Number 9, judicial personality. The state shall recognize fully the judicial personality of Indigenous peoples, respecting Indigenous forms of organizations and promoting the full exercise of the rights recognized in this declaration. The state shall recognize fully the judicial personality, okay, of indigenous peoples. No, juridical, all right? Respecting indigenous forms of organization. They have to respect it. Article 10, rejection of assimilation. 1. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain, express, and freely develop their cultural identity in all respects, free from any external attempt at assimilation. I'm going to read that again. We, the indigenous people, have the right to maintain, express, and freely develop our cultural identity in all respects, not in some, but in all respects, free from any external attempt at assimilation. External means that anybody outside of ourselves. We are supposed to be free from any form of assimilation. Number 2, the state shall not carry out, adopt, support, or favor any policy to assimilate the indigenous peoples or destroy their cultures. So if any policy that they put in place is preventing you from being indigenous or claiming your identity, all right, or wanting to be self-determined, then that's a violation. Article number 11, protection against genocide. Indigenous people have the right to not be subjected to any form of genocide or attempt to exterminate them. Not some, but any, okay? Number 12, guarantees against racism, racial discrimination, and xenophobia, and other related forms of intolerance. Xenophobia just basically means the fear of other races, okay? In essence, I'm paraphrasing, all right? Indigenous peoples have the right not to be subject to racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and other related forms of intolerance. The state shall adopt the preventive and corrective measures necessary for the full and effective protection of this right. Cultural identity. We got Article 13, right to cultural identity and integrity. 1. Indigenous peoples have the right to their own cultural identity and integrity and to their cultural heritage, both tangible and intangible. What does that mean? Okay, our cultural identity and integrity, all right, to our cultural heritage, both tangible, meaning that it could be seen or it could be touched, but also intangible. Even if you can't touch it, but I could express it, that means you have a right to respect it, right? Including historic and ancestral heritage and the protection, preservation, maintenance, and development of that cultural heritage for their collective community, continuity, and that of their members, and so as to transmit that heritage to future generations, which is our posterity, right? Number 2, state shall provide redress. In other words, let me get that ching-ching, through effective mechanisms, all right? It has to be effective. So we're not going to play semantics. We want something that's going to work, all right? Which may include restitution, developed in conjunction, meaning that you have to work with us, with indigenous peoples, with respect to our cultural, intellectual, religious, and spiritual property, taken without their free, prior, and informed consent or in violation of their laws, traditions, and customs. We kind of read something synonymous, right? Or that is coherent with that same article in UNDRIP as well. Number 3, indigenous peoples have the right to the recognition and respect for all their ways of life, worldview, spirituality, uses and customs, norms and traditions, forms of social, economic, and political organization, forms of transmission of knowledge, institutions, practices, beliefs, values, dress, and languages, recognizing the interrelationship as elaborated in this declaration, right? Now it goes to Article 14. It speaks of the language and communication. We have a right to promote our own systems, our media communication and all that. We also have a right to partake in other forms of media. So like I'm going to ask you all again, how come we don't have a channel on BET talking about our indigenous culture? How come you don't have a voice on your radio stations in your city talking about indigenous cultures? Because you are not using your rights in its full effective ways. I'm just saying. Then it goes to Article 15, it's space of education, right? And then it goes to Article 16. I'm just going to browse through it because it's a lot, right? You could read that on your own. Indigenous spirituality. One, Indigenous people have the right to freely exercise their own spirituality and beliefs, and by virtue of that right to practice, develop, transmit, and teach their traditions, customs, and ceremonies. All right, like I said, for those of you who like to smoke herb, that is part of your custom. That is part of our ceremonies, right? And we have every right to do those things. But once again, you are being trapped, right, by using a patent word. You're not getting in trouble for actually doing the herb or the plant. You're getting in trouble for using a patent word without their license. It's like a copyright, okay? If I copyright something or I trademark something and you use it, I could bring a claim against you. It's the same thing. You are using a patent word called marijuana without their permission. So now they're able to make a claim against you. All right, pit game. Semantics, right? That's what the devil do, right? Okay, here we go. Number two, no indigenous people or person shall be subject to pressure or impositions or any other type of coercive measures that impair or limit their right to freely exercise their indigenous spirituality and beliefs. So now you cannot coerce me into saying anything that goes or contradicts my spiritual belief. All right? Anything that's done under such coerciveness, all right, is done under duress, and therefore it's not admissible in court or before a court. You feel me? Number three, Indigenous peoples have the right to preserve, protect, and access their sacred sites, including their burial grounds, to use and control their sacred objects, okay? Your sacred objects and relics. Don't they always catch you with paraphernalia? That's a relic, right? But they call it paraphernalia. You know what I'm saying? So brothers and sisters, man, y'all gotta be a little more wise. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna do it, at least learn how to protect yourselves, or keep your ass at home and smoke in your house. Period. Okay? Now, Article number 17, Indigenous family. Number one, the family is a natural and fundamental group unit of society. Indigenous peoples have the right to preserve, maintain, and promote their own family systems. You cannot determine what my family system should be. That is that's a violation of human rights. States shall recognize, respect, and protect the various indigenous forms of family, in particular the extended family, as well as forms of matrimonial union, affiliations, descent, and family name. In all cases, gender and generational equity shall be recognized and respected. Number two, in matters relating to custody, adoption, severance of family ties, and related matters, the best interest of the child shall be a primary consideration. In determining the best interest of the child, courts and other relevant institutions shall take into account the right of every indigenous child in the community with a member of his or her people to enjoy his or her own culture, to profess and practice his or her own religion, or to use his or her own language, and in the regard shall look to the indigenous law of the peoples concerned, and shall consider their points of view, rights, and interests, including the positions of individuals and family and community. They cannot just come take our children. They have to deal with our indigenous community. But they get away with these things because we are too divided. All right. Then it goes into Article 18. It goes into health. All right. Then it goes into Article 19, rights to protection of a healthy environment. It goes into Section 4, organizational and political rights. Article 20, rights of association, assemble, and freedom of expression and thoughts, right? Number one, indigenous peoples have the right of association, assembly, organization, and expression, and to express them without interference and in accordance with their worldview. Inter alia means and other, right? Values, usages, customs, ancestral traditions, benefits, spirituality, and other cultural practices. Two, indigenous people have the right to assemble on their sacred and ceremonial sites and areas. For this purpose, they shall have free access and use to these sites and areas. So any site that we deemed to be ceremonial, why are we paying to go to these places? Brothers and sisters, we have to exercise our full rights in its entirety, okay, in its full capacity, right? we have to hold these people accountable. All right. Let us go to, let me see, autonomy. Oh, there we go. Article 21. It says what? Number one, indigenous peoples in exercising their right to self-determination have the right to autonomy or self-government in matters relating to their internal and local affairs, as well as ways and means for financing their autonomous functions. Same thing that Andrip said. We have every single right to do that, to create our own governments and be autonomous. Number two, indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and develop their own decision-making institutions. So we don't need your courts. What it says, our own decision-making institutions. We make our own laws. Basically, they are telling you, you make your own laws. They also have the right to participate in the decision-making in matters with which would affect their rights. They may do so directly or through their representative and in accordance with their own norms, procedures, and traditions. They also have the right to equal opportunities to access and to participate fully or effectively as peoples in all national institutions and fora, including deliberative bodies. Okay, so in other words, we have a right to deal with their own jump off as well. All right. Article 22, indigenous law and jurisdiction. 1. Indigenous people have the right to promote, develop, and maintain their institutional structure and their distinctive customs, spirituality, traditions, procedures, practices, and in cases where they exist, judicial systems or customs in accordance with international human rights law. So once again, we have a right to set up our own judicial courts. All right? We have every single right to do that. Number 2, indigenous people, indigenous law. Let me ask you a question. It says indigenous law. So where's your indigenous law at? Where are your bylaws? Where's your constitution? That's the law. Isn't the constitution the highest law of the land? So where's your constitution? Where's your indigenous law? All right? Brothers and sisters, man, all I could do is open up your mind and give you the information. Now, you do what you want with it. That's just all I'm just saying, right? Shall be, and it says what? The indigenous law and legal systems shall be recognized and respected by national, regional, and international legal systems. So once you have done your bylaws, your constitutions, your constructive notice, once you have done all that, you set up your nation, now you put that on the record, you also make sure it's recognized internationally. Now you talk in my language. Now you are where I'm at. Okay? So I tell people, stop hating and learn, man. You feel me? Too many haters out there. Number 3, the matters referring to indigenous persons or to their rights or interest in the jurisdiction of each state shall be conducted so as to provide for the right of the indigenous people to full representation with dignity and equality before any law. So before any law, right? Anytime there is any type of, jurisdictional question, there has to be, they have to provide the right of indigenous people, and we have to have full representation with dignity and equality before the law, right? Consequently, they are entitled without discrimination to equal protection and benefit of the law, including the use of linguistic and cultural interpreters, right? Number 4, the state shall take effective measures in conjunction with indigenous peoples to ensure the implementation of that right, or of the article, okay? Contributions, the indigenous legal and organizational system. Indigenous people have the right to fully effective and their own institutions. States shall consult. All right, let me go. Treaties and agreements. Treaties and agreements. Article 26. And other constructive agreement and other constructive arrangements. Right. Your constructive notices and arrangement. You see, once again, you got to peep the language. You got to read to understand. Right. Number 1, indigenous peoples have the right to recognition, observance, and enforcement of treaties, agreements, and other constructive agreements arrangements concluded with states and their successors in accordance with their true spirit and intent in good faith, and to have the same be respected and honored by the states. States shall give due consideration to the understanding of indigenous peoples as regards to treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements, right? Then you have 2. Then you have section Section 5, you have Article 25, traditional forms of property and cultural survival, right to land. We have rights to land and all that. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and strengthen their distinctive spiritual, cultural, and material relationships to their land, territories, and resources, and to assume their responsibilities to preserve them for themselves and for their future generations. Number 2, Indigenous people have the right to lands, territories, resources, which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise acquired. So once again, we could go acquire land. I keep telling my people, you don't have to pay for anything. So why aren't we coming together and go acquire land and create our own communities? Brothers and sisters, what do you think acquired means? But sometimes, you know, I don't want you to think that Chief is just talking sometimes. I'm showing y'all the information, right? Then it have 25, Indigenous peoples in voluntary isolation or initial, and then they have labor rights. All right, you guys could read all that stuff for yourself. Let me just go down because we have a few more information to go over. Okay. Then we have protection and cultural heritage and intellectual property. Let me see, protection, then collective property. All right, let me state for representing agreements. All right, rights to development. Indigenous people have the right to maintain and determine their own priorities, yes, including development plans, and Indigenous people have the right to actively involve. Okay, state shall consult. Indigenous people have the right to effective measures to mitigate adverse ecological, economic, social, cultural, or spiritual impacts for implementation of the development projects that affect their rights. Indigenous people who have been deprived of their own means of sustenance and development have the right to restitution. So they're saying that anytime they prevent us from sustaining ourselves, in other words, working and opening up businesses, and they want to prevent you from doing that, you have a right to restitution. We don't need your licenses to do anything. Okay? Once we are indigenous. All right? Because we never needed a license to take care of ourselves before you came. So we shouldn't need it now. The right to peace and security. Okay, then we have general provisions. Okay, economic rights, traditions, worldview. 15, declaration. Then you have recognized present declaration, guaranteed equal. I'm just trying to go through a few things. Article 33, Indigenous peoples and persons have the right to effective and appropriate remedies, including prompt judicial remedies for the reparation of all violations of their collective and individual rights. The states, with full and effective participation of Indigenous peoples, shall provide the necessary mechanisms for the exercise of that right. Okay. Kids of education, present declaration. Indigenous people have the right to fundamental enjoyment rights. Organization of American States, application of the rights. Let me see. Just try to go through it real quick, see if there's anything I want to just point out, determine accordance. Nothing in this declaration, the rights of the declaration. All right, so once you guys go through that, I think I may have overlooked it, but there's a declaration in there that speaks of Indigenous people have the right to travel between all borders, right? So let me just come back to the chat real quick because I've been reading for a while now. Okay. So what does that mean? I know it's getting a little late, so I'm gonna rush through it real quick. But what does that mean? It means that we as Indigenous people, right, we have every single right to travel the borders. Okay, in other words, we have the right to go to South America. We have a right to go to Central America. We have the right to go to all these borders or all these borders without any form of hindrance. Okay, because this is our ancestral home. This is our ancestral home. They should not prevent us from traveling our land. But once again, we are being prohibited because we as a people, we are not coming together. We are not holding them accountable. We are not making sure that these declarations become law because too many people are busy fighting, focusing on other things. We have all the answers, brothers and sisters. We have all the answers. It's right there in our faces. And if you didn't know about it before tonight, I'm giving it to you. All right? We have every right lawfully to go to South America, Central America without a passport, only with your Indigenous ID. That is a right that we have. Okay? We have the right to travel our lands. And we have to make sure we exercise that right as a people. So for all you people in the Caribbean, okay, who think you need a green card to come into your land, you don't need a green card. How you have foreigners, immigrants, okay, coming from Europe telling you that you can't travel your land, you need a green card. You see, y'all gotta stop being afraid, man. These people came here and they bogart, right? They raped, they pillaged, they took what they want, and now you're gonna tell me we need this to travel our own land? Because you don't know you Americans? Once again, the United States is not America. May I reiterate? Okay? So we just went through on drip. Hopefully you guys can hang in there with me a little more. I'm gonna go through House Revolution. Okay, so you see, that's what I'm talking about with, with all this, this hateful people right there. You see what I'm talking about? I'm a screenshot this right here. Let me see if I could screenshot this, because you see all these people right here. I'm gonna have to hold you guys accountable and bring some lawsuits against y'all, because y'all think it's a game, and y'all think it's a joke, right? That's what y'all think it is. Y'all really think it's a game, and y'all think it's a joke. Okay, we'll get into all that. Okay. All right, cool. Let us go to the next one. I'm gonna go to give me a second here. Give me a second here, guys. Give me a second here, right? Give me a second here. Because you have a lot of this, these provocateurs. They would never come in your faces and talk when they have to talk. They stay on the internet, and that's when they start talking. I guarantee none of them could come in my face and talk that stuff they're talking. I promise you that. Give me a second here, right? Internet is acting slow again. Internet is acting slow. Give me a second here. Let me just take a picture of this. Alrighty. Because sometimes you have to deal with some of these people, in some ways that you really don't want to, but it's gonna go down sometimes. All right, so we're gonna keep it on a positive flow. All right, because we're not gonna allow any type of negative energy to step in here. So I'm not even gonna go there right now. So let's just leave that alone, and we're gonna continue. All right. And once again, like I always tell people, I'm not a native. I'm an American Aboriginal. All right. So for all you natives out here who always like to come and hate, you know what I mean? The truth is coming out. Our people are actually waking up, to the lies and the usurpation of our identity and our land. You feel me? So y'all gonna learn soon enough. But anyway, I just read and then in the next one I have the next link. I have the role of the Inter-American Human Rights System in the promotion of the rights to information. So you guys could read that. That's there for you as well. You could read that. Also, we have House Resolution 331. I'm going to read that. We're going to go over that. Okay, House Resolution 331, and that was passed by Congress in 1988. Now, if you are aware and realize that in 1988, Jesse Jackson literally brought back the term, and I said brought back, okay, because that term African American was attested in 1969 and 1968, all right, by the Teachers Association. And guess what? The Teachers Association was sponsored by the colonization or by the Colonization Association. You feel me? So just to let you know who was behind the Teachers Association that Jesse Jackson was a part of. So in 1988, he brought it back, the term African American. That same year, they gave us House Resolution 331. Okay, House of Congress, joint resolution, well, not joint, but Resolution 331. And I'm going to read. Concurrent resolution to acknowledge the contribution of the Iroquois Confederacy of Nations to the development of the United States Constitution and to reaffirm the continuing government-to-government relationship between Indian tribes and the United States established in the Constitution. That's why American Indians are the only race or ethnic group that's mentioned in the Constitution. Why? Because we help them develop the United States Constitution. Whereas the original framers of the Constitution, including most notably George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, are known to have greatly admired the concepts of the Six Nations of the Iroquois Confederacy, whereas the Confederation of original 13 colonies into one republic was influenced by the political system developed by the Iroquois Confederacy, as were many of the democratic principles which were incorporated into the Constitution itself. So therefore, if they modeled our governmental systems, that means we already had those structures in place, right? And whereas since the formation of the United States, the Congress has recognized the sovereign status of Indian tribes and has, through the exercise of powers reserved to the federal government in the Commerce Clause of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, dealt with Indian tribes as a government-to-government basis, and has, through the Treaty Clause, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2, entered into 370 treaties with tribal nations, right? Once again, they are saying that they have to deal with us from a government-to-government basis. So you see how everything is kind of coming together into fruition, right? You have UNDRIP, you have ADRIP, now you have House Resolution 331. Now, I'm not going to read all of that. I just wanted to introduce you to it to let you know that the United States and all their states, they have an obligation to deal with us from a government-to-government basis. And that's a fact, okay? What are we going to do now? We're going to go to, now here's the thing, right? What they will tell you is this. Most of these states, they will tell you that, oh, well, you know what? UNDRIP is not legally binding. Oh, well, American Declaration is not legally binding. Oh, well, House Resolution 331 is not legally binding. Okay, you know what? That may be so. And that's true. But this is how you combine this to make it legally binding. And that's what I'm going to show you guys right now. Okay? Give me a second here. This is how you make it legally binding. You start using their codes. Because you see, their codes, they have to abide by. And I'm talking about the USC codes. The USC codes, those are their codes and statutes that they have to abide by. So what you do is you use UNDRIP, you use ADRIP, you use House Resolution 331, and what you do is you combine it with those USC codes, and now it becomes legally binding. So the first one we're going to look at is Title 18 USC Section 241, conspiracy against rights. And we're just going to read a few of those, right? If any two or more persons conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege, it says any right. Now, maybe privilege they might mess with, but any right secured to him by the Constitution or laws of the United States, or because of his having so exercised the same, or if two or more persons going in disguise on the highway or on the premises of another with intent to prevent or hinder his free exercise or enjoyment of any or privilege so secured, they shall be fined under this title or imprisonment not more than 10 years or both. And if death results from the acts committed in the violation of this section, if such acts include kidnapping, right? Kidnapping, because don't they kidnap our children? They take indigenous children all the time and tell you, oh, it's CPS or ACS, right? That's kidnapping. Or an attempt to kidnap, aggravated assault, abuse, or attempt to commit aggravated sexual abuse, or attempt to kill, they shall be fined under this title, imprisoned for a term of years or for life, or both, or may be sentenced to death. All right. So we are supposed to be holding them to these laws. So what we do now, right? We let them know about UNDRIP. We let them know about ADRIP. We let them know about House Resolution 331. Well, when they say it's not legally binding, now we slap them with Section 20, Title 18, Section 241. Boom, there you go. It's literally saying the same thing that UNDRIP is saying, but now it becomes legally binding. You feel me? Pick the game. All right. Now, once you hit them with that, now you're going to hit them with USC Code 242, Declaration of Rights on the color of law, because they're dealing with your color of law. Color of law is not law. It is of law, but it's not law. Okay, color of law. Let's read a little bit on that. And that's Title 18, USC Code, Section 241. All right, here we go. Deprivation of rights on the color of law. Whoever on the color of law, statute, ordinance, regulation, or customs willfully subjects any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district to the deprivation of any right, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution of laws of the United States, or to different punishments, pains, or penalties on account of such persons being an alien or by reason of this color or race than any prescribed for the punishment of citizens shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both, and if bodily injury result from the acts committed in violation of this section, if such acts include the use, attempted use, or threatened use of dangerous weapons, explosive, or fire, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. And if death results from the acts committed in violation of this section, if such acts include kidnapping, here we go again, or an attempt to kidnap, aggravated assault, abuse, etc., 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 all right, they could be sentenced to death. All right, so now you tie all those in. Being an alien, we are aliens to the United States because we are not citizens. They tell you that you are, but by law, we are not. We are not. Okay? So don't think that you're a United States citizen. They're making you think that you are, but you are not. When you go back to the Dred Scott case, right? They said that anybody from African descent could never be a U.S. citizen. But we know we are not from Africa, so we have to go to what now? The Reclassification Act, which is this, or the Reconstruction Act, which is the same thing as the American Indian Citizen Act, where they made all of our people, okay, that were identified as American Indians, they made them all citizens. But it said that provided that it doesn't impair us being who we are. So we have lost our culture, lost our land, lost our identity. So therefore, by default, you are not a United States citizen. That's why you have no rights, you so-called black people and so-called African Americans. Okay, you have no land, you have no territory. You are dead in sea water, man. You don't exist. But when you are indigenous and you know who you are and you claim who you are, you slap them with Andre, you slap them with Adria, you slap them with House Resolution 331, and they say, oh, it's not legally binding. Now you go to the USC codes that now that binds them to it. Plus you get their oath, plus you get their bond. And also you look up the Declaration of Human Rights as well. You slap all that together, man. Now you got some power. Okay. Also, you got Title 28 USC code 1443 that deal with civil rights as well. So that's another one you could look at. All right. So just wanted to share a bit of that information with you. Also, you could go to I have that in the description as well. Executive order. All right. That was an executive order that Donald Trump passed. Executive order blocking the property of persons involved in serious human rights abuse or corruption, right? That was issued on December 21st, 2017. It says, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, including the international emergency, also look that up. The international Emergency Economic Powers Act. Okay, look those things up. You feel me? Also the IIPA, the National Emergency Act, the NEA, the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act. All those things are legally binding. They are legally binding. So you have to, trust me, you have to have all that in your arsenal, okay, already printed out. So now you have all these, plus the declaration, plus the resolution. You feel me? And it says, I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, why didn't he say the United States? You see the difference? He didn't say the United States. He said the United States of America. Because now now they're dealing with rights. So now they are talking about the organic, the republic. You see, y'all got to peep game. When you deal with the United States, you have no rights. You have privileges. But when they're dealing with human rights, okay, they have to deal with the organic. They have to deal with the republic side. That's why it's the United States of America and not just the United States, right? They're all incorporated to a certain extent, but the United States of America deals with the republic, right? It says, find that the prevalence and security of human rights abuse and corruption that have their source in whole or in substantial part outside the United States, such as those committed or directed by persons listed in the annex in this order, have reached such scope and gravity that they threaten the stability of international political and economic systems. Human rights abuse and corruption undermine the values that form an essential foundation of stable, secure, and functioning societies, have devastating impacts on individuals, weaken democratic institutions, degrade the rule of law, perpetuate violent conflicts, facilitate the activities of dangerous persons, and undermine economic markets. The United States seeks to impose tangible and significant consequences on those who commit serious human rights abuse or engage in corruption, as well as to protect the financial system of the United States from abuse by these persons. You feel what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, man, you have all these things put together, and anybody who violates your right, they're not above the law. I'm talking about whether it may be the police, whether it may be the judges, whether it may be the prosecutors. I don't care who it is. Once they're violating your rights, you make sure that they're held accountable. Now you have the tools that you could use. All right? Use it. Learn it. Study it. Know how to articulate it. You feel me? Okay, somebody said that they can't hear me. Why can't you hear me? No sound. What word? Like, what's going on? How is that there is no sound? You guys cannot hear me? My sound is on. Okay, that don't make any sense. Let me just, all of a sudden, my sound is gone, right? How ironic. I tell you, man, this is ridiculous. Okay, my sound is up. Okay, sound is up. Yep, it's up. Sound effects, output, balance, the volume is up. All right. I don't get it. Okay, so you guys cannot hear me? Okay, so let me ask, what part did you miss? What was the last thing y'all heard? What was the last thing y'all heard? Because I need to go over that again before I conclude the video. Can anybody tell me what was the last thing you heard real quick? Yeah, I know I'm good now, but I just wanted to know if I should go over the last thing that I read. Okay, what was the last thing that you hear? Kareem, if you don't mind, help me out with that a little bit. Okay, but hopefully you heard the House Resolution 331. Hopefully you heard about the Title 18 and Title 28, and then you heard of I read the part of the executive order that Donald Trump signed in December of 2017. I mean, I think 2017. I think. Let me see. Yeah, December of 2017. Oh, Dred Scott. Wow. Oh, wow. You guys missed a lot then. All right. So here's the thing, right? So it's let me just kind of digress a little bit. So I was talking about Dred Scott, right? Dred Scott, in the Dred Scott case, go look it up. It says that anyone of African descent can never be a citizen of the United States. All right. Those for you that call yourself African Americans, they're telling you that you could never be a citizen of the United States because you are of African descent, right? Hence, again, reparations is a trap, because the mere fact that you take reparations, you are saying that you're African American, and in law, you could never be a citizen. So therefore, you get paid, they're gonna kick you out. Okay, that's number one. Secondly, for those of us who are not of African descent, however, we American Aborigines, aka American Indians, we are not United States citizens by default as well. And I'll tell you why. Because of the Reclassification Act, which is the American Indian Citizen Act of 1924. They made all American Indians United States citizens. But there's a provision. It says that providing that it doesn't impair your right of being an Indian. In other words, it doesn't take away your livelihood as being as an American Indian. Okay, what does that mean? Do you have your land? Do you have your language? Do you have your culture? No, we don't have that. So by default, we are not United States citizens. So if you don't claim your status as who you are, then you are literally, once again, you are nationless. You are stateless. So black people and African Americans are running around here thinking they have rights. They don't. They don't exist. They don't exist. You only have privileges that can be taken away. All right. And if you're indigenous as well, okay, if you are indigenous as well and you don't put that on record, then you might as well be the same thing. Okay, so that's done with. All right. Another thing is I already spoke about the codes, how to tie that into, make it legally binding. I hope you guys heard that. Karim, did you guys hear that? About, Title 18, Section 241 and 242. Also, Title 28. Did you guys hear that? Hopefully you did. All right. And the last thing I went over was the executive order that Donald Trump signed in December 21st of 2017 that deals with the violation of human rights. Okay. And I was telling you guys also, and I'm just going to read the preamble of that real quick. By the authority vested in me as president, by the Constitution and laws of the United States of America. Now you see there's a difference. They're saying the United States of America and not the United States. So now he's talking about, it's dealing with rights of people. So now they're talking about the organic government. They're talking about the republic. If you don't believe me that there's two governments, go do the Pledge of Allegiance again. You pledge allegiance to what? The United States and the Republic, don't you? So the Republic still exists, but they're dealing with you on the municipal side, okay, the commercial side, which is the United States, okay, which is a federal corporation. It states that in their own codes. All right, so you want to be able to go look at including you want to look at the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. All right, you want to look at that, IEEPA. Also, the National Emergencies Act, 50 USC 1601. And you want to look at that as well. Also, the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act, public law. Again, public law. That's a law. So it is legally binding, brothers and sisters. Okay? You want to look at that as well. You also want to look at Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, 8 USC 1182F, INA, and Section 301 of Title United States Code. Now you're dealing with laws, and anybody who violates your human rights, they will be prosecuted. So now once you tie all of this together with UNDRIP, right? Once you tie all of that together with UNDRIP, which is the United Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, tie that to ADRIP, American Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Also, you bring in House Joint Resolution 331, right? You bring in the rights of human rights, international rights. Once you slap all that together, even if by themselves they're not legally binding, but once you put that together with, okay, Title 18, Title 28, also the executive order, now you have a super PACT, legally and lawfully binding protection as an indigenous man or woman. And now you could bring claims. And plus you pull their oaths, you pull their bonds. Man, listen, trust me. I tell people there is remedy. You just have to do your research. Okay? You just have to do your due diligence. You feel me? So once again, I just wanted to come on and share that information with y'all. I hope you guys enjoy the build. All the links are in the description below. All right. Do your own due diligence. Don't believe anything that I say. All right. Do your own research. Study the information. Get to know the information. Print out the information. All that stuff should be in your arsenal. You feel me? All of that should be in your arsenal. And when you go to your Congress people in your state, or when you go to your legislative bodies, you want to make sure you have all your documents with you. So when you are talking to them, you have everything to back up what you are saying. And let them know you're going to hold them accountable. Okay, they swore an oath to the people, not to property, not to wards of state, but to the people. That's their bosses, the people. We are the bosses. Okay? Wards of states and subjects are the slaves. So you determine what you want to be. Either you want to be a boss or you want to be a slave. You're black, you're African American, you're a slave. You're indigenous, American Aboriginal, put that on the record, you're a boss. But now you got to live like a boss. You got to walk like a boss. You got to talk like a boss. You got to act like a boss. Okay? So, I'm about to conclude the build. Yeah. Well, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good, man. Like I said, you know, that's what it is. It's all love. And that's what we're doing, man. You know, just sharing information, you know, letting people know that, man, listen, we got work to do. You feel me? We shouldn't spend too much time on social media debating each other, man. It's just too much to be done. Too much to be done. Every single second counts. Every single minute counts. Okay? Every single minute counts. Every hour. Stop wasting your time, brothers and sisters. Okay? It's one thing to have the knowledge. It is something else to make it applicable to your life. How do you implement it? How do you hold these people accountable? I just showed you how. Okay? And if they don't want to give you their information, do what's called a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, or in certain states it's called an Oprah. All right, get their information. Get their information. Get their oaths. Get their bonds. All right. That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. Call the what is it called? The trade commissions, I think. I think that's what it's called. But it's something, you could make complaints. All right, make complaints. Don't think people, it works. Believe me, it works. It works because nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law. They may be above the codes and statutes and ordinances and policies, but they're not above the law. Remember, codes, policies, ordinances, and statutes, they are not laws. They are codes, policies, ordinances, and statutes. Just what they say they are, that's what they are. And they are not laws. And these codes, ordinances, and policies and statutes are not put in place to govern the people. Okay? They are put in place to govern wards of states and subjects. Laws are put in place, all right, for us to keep them in check. So know the difference. Okay? And don't go into courts talking about Constitution if you are a subject or a ward of a state. All right? They will hold you for contempt because the Constitution doesn't apply in this municipal courts because they're not dealing with Constitution. It's all commerce, commercial. Okay? So enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a great continuation. Get some rest. Share the information. And I appreciate, love you guys. Thank you for hanging in. All right? We'll talk soon. Peace.